David Hula. Let's give David a great big hand. There you are. He magically appears. I like that. Excellent. Thank you, David.
All right. Boy, it's neat to be in Anaheim. Tell you all a little story. My daughter has been to every Commodity Classic since she was 5 years old. She is missing this time because she's at the hospital today giving birth to my first grandson or grandchild. So Miss Sandy, my wife, is like about to have a stroke because we're over here. So let's talk, man, I got so much I could share with y'all on how to produce higher yields corn. It's just, they only give me a little bit of time. So we're going to go through this kind of quick. Hopefully we'll have time for some questions, or I'll be here after that for a while to answer some questions. How to manage for high yielding corn. 2018, survival. The state or fact of continuing to live or exist typically in spite of an accident or circumstance or ordeal. December corn, $3.93. That's the real deal, y'all. So we got to try to figure out how to grow more bushels. And how can we do that economically? Y'all, there is no silver bullet to growing high yielding corn. It's taken us decades. I had some people over at the farm several month or so ago doing some duck hunting. We had a plaque on the wall, and it's taken us decades to get to where we are, and I think I have a picture of that later on. We at Ringwood Farms don't know everything about growing high yielding corn. What we've been able to do is surround ourselves with good people. Yeah, we're at a trade show, so we got a lot of the industry here, whether it's the equipment manufacturers, the chemical manufacturers. Also, we got the fertilizer industry here. We got the machinery folks. We got the add-on machine folks. We got the biological folks, and then we also got the seed industry here, just like Pioneer, or I should say, how do y'all say the new name? All right, y'all got it. So, and then the academics. You know, I'm a Wolfpacker by education, and we support Virginia Tech there in Virginia. The little yellow arrow shows where Ringwood Farms is on a big map. Things I'm going to share with you, depending on where you are, may or may not work in your area. So don't take everything I suggest to go home and try it all, but just try a few things and maybe something may work. We're going to zoom in a little bit more on Ringwood Farms. All right, that's the James River where the little red dot is. 3 rivers north of that. The third river, y'all know what that river body is, the Potomac River? What's just north of the Potomac River? Washington, D.C. Y'all know what flows downhill? Well, we're south of Washington, D.C. You see that big body of water to the right of our dot? That's the Chesapeake Bay. Y'all, I don't want to get on a soapbox, but pay attention to what's happening in Chesapeake Bay. That's the first area they're trying to clean up. We're doing a really good job. But really focus on it, because if you lived in Delaware and Maryland, you could not apply nutrients until a specific calendar date. If you lived in Maryland, you were only allowed to apply so many pounds of nitrogen on your crop of corn. So there's people in a government agency telling you what you can and can't do. In Virginia, we're not quite as stringent, but we're doing a really good job on that. Focusing a little bit more on Ringwood Farms. This particular picture was taken in 2011. If you notice the corners in the bottom irrigation is awfully dry looking. We averaged on 2,200 acres of corn, 49 bushels. It was an extremely dry year for us. Now we've got our APH yields up into the 180s. We're like 187. Last year we had a little hiccup, or 2017, on dryland corn. We averaged 131 bushels. We had a great bean crop year. Our typical rotation is corn. We're going to no-till small grain behind the corn residue, then we're going to double crop soybeans into that. So we're at 3 crops 2 years. So our bean yields are not going to be planted as early as we'd like to. So our bean average was 52 bushels last year. Really good for us. We saw some 80 and 90 bushel beans in our full season area, but that's just a small percentage of our acres. We crop a little over 4,000 acres, 22% of it's irrigated because of dry weather, and our soils are sandy. CECs go from 2.9, somewhere in that 2 range, to 6.7 is our highest CEC soil. Organic matter is around 1.5%. We've been in continuous no-till, so you think our organic matter will be higher, but I'll show you pictures why our residue just decays so much because we get continuing heat. You also see we got a lot of grain bins because we're in the seed business. I farm with 2 younger brothers. I got a son that farms with me. We have 3 full-time employees because of the seed business, and my dad's retired. He's 77 years old. He's 78 this month. His only involvement in the farm is he likes to collect the mail. He fusses at how big the bills are. He never comments on how good a job I do marketing the grain and how big the checks are. He goes to the office, turns on the computer, makes sure we're doing good, and then he goes and spends my inheritance. There's on the lower part of that picture, you'll see 2 red buildings that are kind of added together. He likes to go on eBay and collect antique farm equipment. So he's spending my inheritance. I like to think he's investing it, hopefully, for us wisely. So you see we were involved with agri-tainment, corn mazes there for a while. That's my dad, and then my son to the center, and then a good-looking guy on the right. Farmers Hand Success. I had a chance to give a talk 20 years ago, and I had 5 key points, the reasons why we have good yielding corn. And my daughter at the time, she was 7 years old, and she said, "Dad, that's just like fingers on your hand." So we created this Farmers Hand to Success. The one digit that separates us from all other animals in the kingdom is our thumb. I had a chance, y'all know of a guy named Francis Childs? Manchester, Iowa. He was given a program. I'm a Southern Baptist. I want to sit in the back of the room like the folks back there, but I was this time sitting in the front. I had a pad and a pencil. I was going to write down something that he was going to say to improve my yield. The number one thing he said was you had to have a positive attitude. Just kind of shrunk. I wanted to know what fertilizer, how much, what population, fungicide. I wanted to know something real, but what he meant was you had to be willing to try something new. And I give y'all thumbs up for coming out to the Classic and thumbs up for Pioneer having y'all. So this one here, I don't know if y'all, you gotta have mentors. On the top left is, Herman Warsaw. The bottom left, y'all recognize him? Who is he? Henry Wallace. All right, the top right, late Steve Albrecht, guy from Hart, Texas, perennial winner. He passed away last year. Huge guy to me, helped me understand the importance of even emergence and also plant health. And then the bottom right is Francis Childs, the late Francis Childs. 1985, we put our first irrigation in 1984. We entered into a yield contest in 1985. We had a yield of 100, I think it's 81 bushel. Yep. 85, 181. First time we had irrigation. Today we're at what? We've had a long road, y'all. It has not happened overnight. It's taken a long time. What makes yield? When you take your truckload of corn to the granary, what is the granary paying you for? Pounds, right? Can you influence that? We're going to talk about how you can. There's 3 areas. Population, how many kernels you can get on the ear, and that's in 2 ways. How many rows around, how long they are, and test weight. 3 areas in which you can adjust it. So first, when you plant corn, that's easy. You just dial the planter up. When can you influence? When is the ear being determined the girth, and when is the ear being determined lengthwise? Some folks say V3 or V5 to V8. How many rows around? That's when it's determined. And then some talk about around couple weeks before tassel is when you can actually influence the length of the ear. And then during grain fields when you influence test weight. So how can we do that? We realize it takes so many pounds of nutrients to grow a bushel crop. We realize that you have to have a certain amount out as the crop is growing. Let's agree that it takes roughly 1 pound of nitrogen to grow a bushel of corn. Now we're not going to talk about how many pounds of phosphate, potash, or boron or whatever, but it takes X amount of pounds. So if you've got a goal of 250 bushels of corn, and then you want to go to 300 bushels of corn, you got to add 50 more pounds of nitrogen, y'all. So now, not only do you have to add it, additional, but it's better to know when to apply it. Corn, for instance, when corn is vegetatively growing, it likes nitrate nitrogen, y'all. When corn is reproductively growing, it likes ammonium nitrogen. It's got to be in the root zone, so we got to make sure it's in the soil, plant available, and we don't want the crop to spend a lot of energy trying to find its nutrients and to get it into the crop. On our hand to success, index finger. Things you can specifically point to: soil management, pest management, and fertility management. Fertility management, each one of these little pictures represent that we made an application on their corn crop to have that kind of yield. Anybody want to guess how much it costs to grow 500 some bushel corn? Anybody got an idea? Spit it out. Somebody say $1,400. Closest I had, $1,478. I better grow 500 bushel corn. Y'all, we failed a lot. We do a lot of small test plots. So the things we learn on these big on their test plots, if they are successful, we incorporate into bigger plots. You just see here where we are making multiple applications. The reason we like to make multiple applications, if for some reason the weather turns south, then we need to turn off the spigot. We're not going to make any more spend any more money on it. You notice 2.5 gallon jug, we'll talk about that. And then additional fertility management. This is the same pen right there. So look at this picture. There's two things to notice. First of all, this particular field was continuously no-tilled since 1991. We don't have residue. We can't build it. It decays so fast. Same pen. Anybody want to guess what the population of that corn is? Anybody want to guess? I need a drink of water, so somebody spit out a number. 52,000. Wouldn't you like to be my pioneer dealer? Oh yeah. Notice how uniform the seedlings are. That's important. Spacing, uniformity, emergence. We get on a little quick soapbox. We're in the survival mode. That was the second slide. One thing, I was in Iowa State giving a presentation, and I heard the professor there talk about trying to cut back costs. He said, use so many gallons of 1034 in the furrow. I'm not going to ask if anybody does that, but I will ask, will anybody fill up a sprayer with 1034 and then go spray their cornfield when it's this tall? Anybody do it? No. Why? Because it's going to burn it. So we did an illustration. I took one bag of seed, and then if we planted the seed at 34,000 and we were putting 5 gallons of a product in furrow, how much of that fertilizer would fill up like a cap of a soda pop? Well, we figured out that amount, and then we took that bag of seed and we took 1/3 of it, we did not treat. We took 1/3 of it, we treated with a product called 31818, and then we took 1/3 of that bag and treated with 1034 with the amount of seed that would come roughly within 1 inch of that seed as it was germinating. Sending all 3 samples off to a lab, AB Labs in Norcross, Georgia. The untreated sample came back 99% germ. The treated sample with the 31818 came back 99% germ. The 1034 sample came back 91% germ. Y'all, I don't want to do anything that's going to jeopardize my germ. I told a grower that and gave that same illustration in Mississippi several years ago. He came up to me and said, David, I dry seeded my corn crop. It did not rain for so many weeks after. I put 6 gallons of 1034 out. I had to replant almost my entire crop because that was the first drink of water that crop took. I don't care how you put your product out, just make sure it's a safe product. When we're planting corn, every acre, when I plant corn, I'm optimistic I'm going to have a good crop. When I plant corn, every acre gets us started. We do not variably apply this. We're putting out using a 2211 with some sulfur, zinc, and boron. So we're putting 66 pounds of nitrogen out, 33 pounds of phosphate, was it 6 pounds of sulfur, half a pound of zinc, and 10th pound of boron. Every acre. I want my corn crop to have enough nitrogen when the planter leaves the field that it can get to V8. Because I can't always guarantee it's going to rain after I side dress my corn. So I want to make sure it is not deficient at all. That's one way in which we're able to help make sure we get the girth of the ear. Number 2, the influence of girth of the ear. We like to make a micronutrient application with copper, iron, zinc, manganese, boron, cobalt, and moly. Humic and fulvic acid and some kind of energy source at around V4. Because V3, the plant's now not living off the seed. It's starting to photosynthesize. Now I want to force my crop to be nutritionally balanced with micronutrients. If we have clear days, we will do that on every irrigated acre and the dryland acres. If it's a cloudy day, I'm not going to spend that money because I'm not going to influence the growth of that ear. We have been able to pick up 1.7 more rows around in doing so. That can be huge when you start talking going from 16 to 18 or 18 to 20 rows around. Anybody ever thought about the best row direction, plant corn? East to west. If I had to take a guess, east to west, if I had a south slope in the east-west field, I can do one thing, I can capture more sunlight. This field was continuously no-tilled since 1986, and this is truly east and west. Where we do some east-west and north and south, we'll see as much as 11 bushels difference from that. Riding irrigation because I was going to take some pictures. It was a slow day, so I just turned the pivot on and rode around. So you imagine it would be a slow day if you've seen how fast pivots go. Just took some pictures. Looking, this is somewhere between V6 and V7. We're capturing what I like to say when I fall off the irrigation, this is what you see, but we're capturing sunlight. That's something that we can't make. They have not made sunlight in a bottle yet. They made sunscreen to stop it. Here we are just making a fungicide spray. This is one of those capsules. We're trying to prime the seed for making the longest ear. This is kind of a quick summary of kind of some of the things that we do. Every 8 pounds of nitrogen, we're going to put 1 pound of sulfur. Every time we, how you doing, Mr. Dowdy? Every time we make a nitrogen application, we're adding sulfur. Every time we're adding sulfur, we're adding some boron. But the reason I'm showing this picture is 2.5 gallon jug. There was an agronomist with Pioneer, Jeff Sussman, told me he had an idea to help me make my corn ear longer, perked my attention. So I decided I would listen to him. He said, I want you to put 100 pounds of nitrogen in a concentrated form 7 to 10 days before testing. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to fertigate. Well, he got one to choke me because he said concentrated form. So I decided I'd put some drip tape out. You know how hard it is to convince your partners to put out drip tape in a center pivot field? Not going to happen. So what we did was I took two 2.5 gallon jugs, and I drilled 3 holes in the bottom right side of one jug, 3 holes in the bottom left side of one jug, walked between 2 corn rows, side dressed my nitrogen, put it right next to the base of the plant. By the time I was done, my son, Lee Wooten, one of our workers, and myself, we did 8 acres with 2.5 gallon jugs. What did we do? We picked up 4 kernels longer on each ear, and 4 kernels, you say, well, all that for 4 kernels? Well, 4 kernels, 20 rows around, that's 80 kernels, right? 80 kernels on a plant population of 44,000, that is a big deal. So we've taken it a step further. There's always people smarter. Greg Sauter did the 360 Y drives, 360 deal with the Y drives. Have you ever walked out in your cornfield when the corn's overhead high and early in the morning? I would like to challenge each and every one of y'all to do that if you haven't. Do that, and I'm hoping you get a good heavy dew because I want you to get wet. But go past your headlines out into the field and then look at the base of the plant. More than likely, you'll see a softball-sized ring of moisture. That's where God is naturally wicking in the nutrients. This dew is falling off the plant and going there. Putting this fertilizer there is the mechanism to get the nutrients into the crop, to make the crop, let's say, lazy, so it can have the nutrients in the form it wants, and it can be lazily cheaper. This particular picture is taken at Mainland Farms. A little history. Captain John Smith came across the Atlantic Ocean, came up mouth of Chesapeake Bay, took a left in the mouth of the James River, landed on Jamestown Island. 1607. 1609, they left Jamestown Island and started farming what's now called Mainland Farms. First cultivated in 1609. The oldest continuously farmed ground from the Western civilization here in the United States. James City County bought the farm. We've been farming it for a little over 25 years now. Second place, we saw 300 bushel dryland corn. Y'all, we've come a long way from digging a hole, putting a catfish down, put 4 kernels of seed on top of it to grow a corn crop. Extremely important. They also decided to showcase the farm. They put a bike trail around the farm and a bike trail through one of the largest fields we have. So could you imagine a mother pushing her stroller along that bike trail and a helicopter flying over? Kind of exciting. If you stick around me long enough, something exciting is going to happen. I'm not going to talk about how to control pests. You just got to control them. Disease, insects, and weeds. Just take care of them. That's important. On our hand to success, mechanical finger. We're at a trade show. Miss Sandy doesn't like this picture, so I won't leave it on very long. But we like to look at paint. When Francis Childs talked about having a positive attitude, y'all, I realize there's 3 things you need to grow high-yielding corn. 1, the good Lord's got to bless you. 2, you got to have Pioneer seed. And 3, you got to use John Deere paint. If you don't have all 3 of those, you're already behind. So this is our corn planter, 16-row planter. You see, we're putting out 25 roughly gallons of our starter and then 5 gallons of some infer product. Average field size less than 20 acres, 16-row planter. We're covering about 150 acres a day, y'all. We want to do it. It's important to us. So if you got big planters and say, I got to plant all my corn in 7 days, I can't do it. Y'all, it's important to slow down and pay attention. Even emergence. There's add-ons to do that. Randy Dowdy over here, I heard Steve Albrecht share with me that his best yields came when his corn evenly emerged within 12 hours. Started paying attention to it. Saw Randy Dowdy give a program one time, I heard him about it, and he said he created this flag study. And I don't think you mind if I share that, do you, Randy? What it is when you plant your corn, maybe don't take yourself out there, or maybe get your wife or somebody to go out there. After so many days after you plant, you see that first spikelet come out of the ground. Take some survey flags and then mark off so many feet and then put, let's say, a red survey flag where you see a spikelet come out of the ground. Then go back another 6 hours, 12 hours, another day. Take a different color flag and put the flag next to those spikelets come out of the ground. Keep doing that till all the spikelets come out of the ground. Write down when you put what color the flag represents. And then, I don't care if you go back, it'd be good to go back and watch, but just prior to harvest, pull those ears and then look at how the ears are similar in reference to when they emerge. And you'll see the importance of whether you need to slow the planter down, whether you need to use some kind of mechanism to enhance even emergence. That is important. When we know that we have the opportunity for our best crop is when I walk out in the field and I see my corn evenly emerge. And here's an example of that. This was taken in 2015. The seedling in the front compared to the seedling in the back was only 4 hours difference. That's important. First of all, I'm out there looking. Second of all, we're getting even emergence. If you do that, all your ears are going to be the same height. Now, I'm not saying your whole field's got to be uniform, just your soil zones. If you can do that, all your crop is growing in unison. You're not getting that plant-to-plant competition. It's just neat. Then you just see your leaves are all the same. So it's kind of it's kind of a report card to say that you've done right. I'm going to assume everybody in here plants their own corn. If you do not plant your own corn, it's important to adapt to some of the newer technologies. iPads where they can record how things are going. This is my son Barley planting some corn. I like this because I can dial in with my phone and my iPad and see how the planter's doing. I can tell if he's got a hot date that night. He's going too fast. I tell him to slow down. If there's a particular row that's messing up, he'll call me and say, hey, I've tried to do this, I can't fix it. It's important because nowadays we can almost plant their entire crop before we see any corn come up. So if you tap into these technologies, then you can fix problems before they actually become reality. On your hand to success, your ring finger. We're about to wrap it up. Picking the right corn hybrid is like finding your spouse. It's emotionally driven. If done right, can be rewarding. If done wrong, can be very costly. Miss Sandy and I have been blessed to be married for 31 years, and she still tells me it can be costly. So it's just important to have that relationship. You know, Pioneer's got y'all here, so that, you know, whether it's with Pioneer or just have that relationship, you got a phone, be able to call somebody and say, hey, listen, I got a problem. I need you to come respond, whether it's the seed folks, your chemical people, or your fertilizer. Maximum genetic yield potential, I used to say that the genetic potential was 502 or 4 bushels. Randy Dowdy proved that wrong because he broke 500. So now the yield potential's got to be higher. I think it's somewhere in that 800 plus bushel range. If that is the case and their country average is 171 bushel roughly last year, we got a long way to go to capture more yield. Little fingers, kind of your management finger. So I'm going to show you some pictures now, just their progression. 2007, my granddad, he died in 1989. He was 89 years old. No, 1998, he was 89. He said, Dave, have you ever noticed when weeds mature, more than not, the seed pod is mature, but the weed itself is still growing? So that kind of resonated with me for years. So in 2007, we were picking some corn and we noticed it was still got a lot of stay green. So I started my thinking process. Can we duplicate that? 2011, it's the picture to the left. That was a hybrid 2088. You notice how green that is. You know, this was picked at somewhere around 24.5% moisture. Awfully tall, still a lot of stay green. I'm one to say if I can do one thing, I want to duplicate it before I try to go further. So we said, could we duplicate it? 2012, we used the Pioneer 2089. So we did duplicate it. That particular corn was harvested. This picture was at, I think it was 21.2% moisture. A lot of stay green. Nutritionally balanced, plant health, fungicides. We're doing all their part. Biologicals, doing it all. So now I can duplicate that. 2013. Now I want to impact that one area that I said the last component of yield, which was, we all listening? Test weight. So I said, can I make my corn heavier and can I make it not dent? Talked to the academic folks. They said, no, it's going to dent. So well, I'm going to challenge it. We'll give it a try. 2013, 2089. We made it very little dent. My daughter, we let the corn field dry. We hand shelled it. 21 and some percent was actually completely rounded. 51% of the kernels were rounded to flat, and then the rest 20-some percent had some kind of dent. We made that corn extremely heavy. 2015, you see the crop when we were harvesting it. Now that is at 28.7% moisture, 1197. 28.7% moisture. Does anybody harvest corn 28.7% moisture? We do because we get named thunderstorms called hurricanes. So it's important for us to get our crop out before it falls over. We've been blessed. If I had to predict what 2018 was going to be for me, it's going to be that we're going to have a hurricane in Charles City, Virginia. Because it's been 7 years since we've had a named storm come near our area. If you notice to the center to the left is where we harvested that corn for the yield check. I left, I think it was 32 rows from the center to the right. I wanted to let the corn actually field dry to see what the crop would look like and what the test rate would actually be if it field dried. 15.2% moisture to the right. Look how green 1197 still is. What do you think that green's doing for it? It's putting energy into the kernel. That corn was 65.3 pounds. For the impact lots in Virginia, if you haven't seen one, for 1197, it's somewhere around that 58, 59 pounds. So we created 6 more pounds of corn. That is huge. I mean, we're not spending hardly any more money to do that. We're just making the plant healthy. We're changing when we make application of fertilizer. So we're just giving the opportunity for that crop to enhance. So here's 2015, get past that. What did we do different in 17? We changed the planter a little bit. We did more wide dropping. We focused a little bit more on some magnesium problems. Well, I don't know if they were problems, but some magnesium, we played with some of that. And then we added some attachments to the corn header. The 360 grain saver. So if you got some, some cash you want to spend on your equipment, and you want a quick return on investment, those grain savers are it. Because you can put it on, you can actually harvest all the grain that you go through the field. Very little header loss at all. The difference in 2017 for us than 2016 was we had excessive sunlight. That was huge. Like I said in one of the earlier statements was, I'll be glad when Curtiva, I say it right? Whatever. So it's still pioneer to me, y'all. So when they learn to put sunlight in a jug. So with that, I don't know if I got time for any questions. I don't see anybody up here. Yeah, got time for any questions, y'all? All right. I ran through that extremely fast. Usually it takes me an hour and a half or so to go through some of that. So I'm surely I confused somebody or stumped somebody or... Yes, sir.
Maybe this is a little bit odd, but when you get, like you would have went from 400 at some point to 500 with irrigation, do you have to continually increase the amount of water that you're applying to that acre, or do you kind of plateau with that?
All right. Well, that is a good question. The question was in reference to water management. We have an agronomist on staff, and we are focused. He does a good job on scheduling our irrigation. So I guess I haven't paid attention to are we applying more water. It's just we have certain parameters we're going to maintain. And in doing so, he's looking at evapotranspiration, how much where the crop stage is. We've also now started incorporating moisture probes into our irrigated fields. Paul Bodensine is 63 years old. He's going to retire. I need plan B for when he retires. So we're using these moisture probes, and we're trying to sim it more like drip tape, as opposed to where we just let the moisture drop and then we put on a big irrigation event to bring the moisture back up. We're doing multiple irrigations, and we're trying to keep that moisture level kind of consistent throughout the growing season. And we, as you push yields, when we thought at first corn only used roughly 3/10 of an inch of water, well, it's using a little more than that. I mean, we're probably closer to 3.38 10 cents of water a day, as it's really rapidly growing. So yes, I guess in a nutshell, we are using more water. Yes, sir.
Okay, the amount of row on the corn cob is decided very early in the growth, like 3-4 leaf stage, something like that. Is it right?
Well, the academic folks are going to say it happens between V5 and V8. Well, I think it happens a little earlier. Have you ever made gone out and checked your field and see it, let's say 20 rows around, then it pitches down to 16 or 14? I bet if you have seen that, oftentimes you can correlate that with one, a weather event, or two, application. Typically it's going to be like a herbicide application. And I've learned that from Randy and the folks down in Georgia, where they talk about, I think it's 450 GDUs is a magic number. You want to make sure you're clearly before that, because that's when the growth is starting to be really impacted.
When you talk about herbicide, it's like post-emergent herbicide will affect the plant. That's what you mean there?
Hard now, I miss
When
that.
you talk about like losing some rows because of the herbicide, that's mean like post-emergence herbicide. You must have tried to not do that then.
Well, I'm going to use post-emergent herbicides. I'm just going to make the application before 450 GDUs. So somewhere prior to the V5, we're going to make those applications. I got summer perennials. I can't control with trees.
What is it special that you do like at the starting of the plant, like to keep that plant so healthy and happy that brings some 20-22 rows around?
Okay, well, one of the things that are allowing us to maximize the growth of the year is we're having it nutritionally balanced. We're giving it that, we're putting we do a great job growing the crop above ground. But I'm doing more below ground now too to get that soil primed so it's feeding the nutrients that that crop wants. Because at V3 is when it's not living off the seed anymore, it's starting to photosynthesize. So then when it goes to V4 or later on, it's got to source out its nutrients. We don't want there to be a problem with those roots finding them. And then that's another reason we like to do that micronutrient cocktail. There's not a big root system. We're forcing it to be balanced there. We know we got enough NP and K because it's found the starter. Now we want to make sure it's got the right ratios of zinc, copper, iron, boron, molybdenum, and from then on. One more question. Yes, sir.
Are you putting the cocktail mix in when you put your
Okay, that's a good question. Am I putting that micronutrient cocktail on irrigated corn ground and good dry land ground? It's a standalone application. On the rest of my acres, I'm mixing it with the post-emergence herbicide, and it's going to happen at 450 GUs. I like to do it as a standalone application because I don't want to have missed my timing and have where the herbicide might ding my crop. So we'll go out there with the sprayer at that particular time all by itself, and we'll add humic and fulvic acid, we'll add a plant growth regulator, and we'll add some sugar. Y'all listen, I enjoyed this, and hopefully 2018 will be blessed, and good Lord bless
David
y'all.
Hula, everybody. Come on, David. Good job, David.